We can also put in various other lights aside from what is coming from the window. So, for example, if you want to do a skylight, that is something that you could add, or if you just want to have an opening in the ceiling. So, the way in which you would start this is you're going to want a horizontal line that goes across the ceiling. And so essentially you're going to draw this much like you would a normal window, it's just in a different location. So we want a line that is parallel with the wall and ceiling line. So we're going to make this pretty high up. And then these two lines are going to connect to our vanishing point. And again, I don't necessarily need to draw all the way down or through my wall. So I'm just going to draw as far as I want my window to go. Now, what you can see is that the lines are pretty well um, about the same length. My window is a little offset though. It's not like perfectly in the center, but that's okay. So I'm going to connect these lines with another parallel line. And there. So now I have this opening in the ceiling, but we want to give it some depth. So it's just not this flat opening. So it's going to have a bit of a indentation or windowsill like what we see here. In this case, these corners we are going to go straight up, and I'm just going to draw a line that's parallel with our wall lines, and then we'll do the same thing over here. And then I'm going to connect these two with a parallel line. I'm not going to pay close attention really to how tall these are. Um, I am going to put more emphasis on this line becoming parallel with the line that we have, because I can always adjust the height of these two lines. So as I'm lining up my ruler, I just want to ensure that these lines are parallel. And then, much like what I did over here, this corner and this corner, I want to align that and connect it with my vanishing point. And then we'll do the same over here. And so what we would have in terms of the opening, this space would be the area of the sky that we would see above. And so this is the area that would allow light in, whereas this would be part of the inside portion of the wall. Now, if you also want to add, for example, like maybe a light off of the ceiling, just like a light bulb or something. So that's a more organic shape, but we're going to start it off with a geometric shape, such as a square. So we're just going to, it's maybe a little awkward, but we'll just put a light bulb right here. Normally something like that would probably be in the middle of the ceiling, but in this case we're just going to put it in a random spot. So I'm going to make a line like this, and essentially what I'm doing, I'm working with the placement of this light fixture. So essentially starting this the same way. And so with this first one, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create kind of like a rounded light. And then I'm going to connect these with a straight line. Again, I want to pay more attention to keeping these parallel. You can see that didn't go all the way across, so I need to connect that a little bit better. And we'll connect this. And so if I wanted maybe kind of like a domed style light, um, essentially this is just going to serve as like a frame. And so I'm going to curve these lines. And so where we have these sharp corners, I'm going to erase these out. But what this box is going to do, it essentially is going to give me kind of a frame to work in. And then the top part, I'm just going to add a slight curve to that. So the portions I would need to erase or get rid of are these small corners here. And then I'm going to get rid of this. And so now we have this like fairly flat domed light. So this would serve as a light source. Now, what I could also turn this into is essentially like a light fixture. So where this is kind of round. Now, if I wanted a light bulb to hang down, we can sketch that in. So this could be a light bulb or another, maybe like a spherical light fixture. In this case, we're just going to turn it into like a pretty big light bulb. Then we'll curve this a little bit. So some of those lines are maybe a little too dark. Kind of got a little carried away. So we're going to erase some of those. So like I said, this could be a little bit bigger of a light bulb. And just, very light markings for the filament inside of it. And I'm going to add a little bit more of a curve here. So because it would be inside of maybe this fixture, okay, I can even add maybe these curved lines and then maybe another curved line. So it looks like it's kind of sticking out of something. If you're wanting to put in, for example, like some type of a lamp or something, essentially you would work with the same idea in that because the bottom of a lamp is most likely rounded, you would kind of want to work within the form of what you're drawing. So say we want a lamp on this table. I'm just going to start with just a basic geometric form. In this case, we're going to work with a rectangle. And then connect your corners to the vanishing point. And again, I don't really want to go too far past this back line of the table, otherwise the light fixture, the lamp, is going to look like it's on the verge of falling off the table. So we're just going to put these lines so that they're kind of short. And then I'm going to have another vertical line. This is going to be pretty small. And then that's going to come over with a horizontal line. And, we can keep it boxy like this. That's a pretty simple form. If you wanted it more rounded, though, so we're essentially taking this and we're going to curve here. We're going to curve the base. And then, if we're working with a cylinder, the sides would be pretty straight. Now, since we're working with a cylinder, this kind of hard edge wouldn't necessarily exist. It would be softer. So we can erase that away. I'm going to erase the back of the table because we're not necessarily going to see through it. And then I'm going to erase this top line, take that off. Round that. Then I'm going to round this just a little bit. And we could have maybe a stem where the light bulb would stick into it. I'll put a little bit of a round line here. And then you could put, you could have some type of lampshade, for example. So you could have curved line. And if we want to add some value to it. And then if this light is off, it wouldn't necessarily, it wouldn't have any type of glow on it or around it. But if it's on, say for example, like you could have a little bit of texture on the table or value, and it would give kind of this like glow around it. And you maybe want a little bit of value on the cylinder just to show that it does have a rounded form. It's going to be pretty light up top because your light is shining down this way. And your table would have probably a darker value here. Not super dark though, because you have light coming in this way and then you have this other light. However, this other light is going to be behind, or it's definitely behind the table, just kind of based on the positioning. So if we know the ceiling line is here, if we were to move the light onto the floor, it would be in this place. So that still tells us that the table is behind or in front of the light. Now this side of the table would be lighter because it would have this light as well as that light, so this side of the table wouldn't have much value on it. So we could leave that with kind of that wood grain texture. We could come in and do tonal shading if you wanted it to have that softer value to it. And I'm just going to add just a touch of value on the side. And then we'll blur this just a touch. So that way it looks like it has this light kind of emitting from above. And this little corner of the table would be lighter. So if we have the light coming from this light bulb, right now there's some darker values right there. So if I just take my eraser, I'm going to just take some of those out. And this side is a little bit darker. It's probably going to be maybe a little darker than that, because if this light is hitting the lamp, it's going to create maybe a little bit of like kind of like a cross shadow where you have the light coming in from here, so it's going to illuminate around it, but then you have this light and the light from the window, so there would be just a slight shadow right there. Now another thing that you may want to consider, or that you may want to put into your drawing, so say for example you want a poster, you're going to start it the same way as the window. It's just not going to have any depth to it. So we'll put a poster up high. So I'm going to have a horizontal line, or a vertical line rather, and then connect the top and bottom to the vanishing point. And we'll stop it about here so it looks like it's hanging right above the door. Then we'll connect these two with a vertical line. So what you also see is how to do text. So if you want a poster with like some type of words or saying on it. So we have just kind of this basic flat space right now. If you want words on it, you know, what I would do, and this is kind of similar to how we approach the soda can and put the words there. If you set it up so you kind of have this space for the text and you're going to write the letters between those spaces, so we're just going to make these areas really light, it will give the correct perspective of that text. Okay, so let's say this is where the text ends. And so we're just going to write the word poster right here. So there's the P. What I do is do first letter, last letter. So the R is going to look the biggest or the tallest. Then we'll do the next letter. So this little stem of the E, it should connect with your vanishing point too, because the top stem and the bottom stem are following that vanishing point. And we're just going to squeeze the S in, and then the top of the T is going to follow that line. And then the stem of the T is going to go up and down. So it should be parallel with these other vertical lines. And so what this does, it creates that 1 point perspective illusion that it's moving back in space. So if you want to create some type of design in the poster, you just need to create what we'll call a bounding box. So I'm going to connect the top and bottom to my vanishing point, and then we'll eventually take this bounding box out. It just kind of gives a place for whatever design you're going to create. So, it's like if say you're wanting to make a star or something, you just create that star within the bounding box, and then you can take that bounding box away after your design is done. So we'll just fill this in so you can see it a little better. And then we would just erase that box that it's in, or you can keep the box if you want that as part of your design or logo. If you want to do some type of poster or something on the wall. Now, other things we can think of, for example, a TV. If you wanted a TV hanging on the wall, like a flat screen, essentially you're going to start it much like the poster. We're just going to create a vertical line that is parallel with all of our other vertical lines. So we'll just make actually we're going to move this over just a little bit. That way I can create some depth with the TV. So we'll do this, make this a big TV, and then connect the tops and bottoms to our vanishing point. And do the same thing here, so connect the bottom. And then connect these two with a vertical line. So remember, it has to be parallel with all of our other vertical lines. And we need to give this depth because a TV is going to essentially stick out of the wall just a little bit. So from this corner and then this corner, we just need a horizontal line. So it should be parallel with your other horizontals. And then draw straight down. So you could also start this one by doing just a long rectangle and then connecting your tops and bottoms to that. So you could also do it that way. So on this one I kind of work backwards. And then something like this that's on the wall, it's probably going to have a bit of a shadow behind it or a dark space behind it. So for example, if this is on the wall and you have light coming in this way, then this, and then you've got this lamp, to help this appear like it's sticking away from the wall, because it's probably on like some type of TV mount or something, we could assume you're going to have kind of that darker shadow. And then so right now we just have this like box attached to the wall. If we're wanting to make it appear like it has a screen, so this would be similar to the example I showed in class where we're essentially making a frame on this. And we're going to attach the top and bottom to our vanishing point. And do the same thing here. And then these two lines I'll just connect. Now you want to think about perspective too. So this side of the frame we would see a little bit more of than on this side. So when I make this line going up, the space in between, I don't want it as wide as what this is. So it doesn't have to be dramatically different, but you should definitely make an attempt to try and make it different. And I need to probably sharpen my pencil just a little bit so I can get in some of these small lines, because it's starting to get a little dull, but that space is still more narrow than what it is over here. And so like this would be your screen or your image. If your TV's off and if you want to make it appear like it's off, it would be pretty dark. Right now, you could even turn this into like a thick mirror also. So in that case, you could have like, reflections of some of the things. You could see like part of the lamp reflected, and then based on the angle, you may see part of the bed. It kind of depends on the angle of where you're looking, honestly, and seeing the things in the mirror. So, we've got a lot of stuff over here. There's nothing on the back wall. If you wanted another window, you could certainly do that. If you want like a really, you could really think outside the box and just make the entire back wall a window. So it doesn't, you don't have to stick with these like really small windows. You can, kind of push the limits a bit and think of more unconventional ideas and things to include in your house. Now, if this entire thing is a window, it's going to create another light source essentially. Um, so you would want to consider that if you do have like multiple light sources in your room. So you could also see like this is a window, and if that's the case, then we would have our horizon line and our vanishing point in line with one another. Of course, that vanishing point we would have to take out at some point anyway. But you could have a range of mountains or something. You could have maybe a body of water, like a lake type view or something. We'll go ahead and take out our vanishing point. because after you get all of your items drawn, you don't need that anymore. Add another hill right here. So maybe this is water, for example. So with these perspective drawings, get creative with them, think outside the box. Don't forget the essential components that you need. So my back wall is now turned into a giant window, but there still is part of a wall here. The wall is what is holding the window in place. Or you could see this as kind of like a garage door type opening. Sometimes they have things like that on beach homes. If I want it as a window, I'd probably need to put in that bottom area of the wall. So I'm just going to do that to finish this up. There we go. Now there's kind of an area that helps hold this window in place. So, after you get everything drawn, then that's where you're going to add all your values. And like with this specific room, there is a lot of light, but you are still going to have shadows throughout the room, even if there is a lot of light or areas where it would be a light source. And think about the room itself. If you have any type of paint, or if your walls are painted, then that's going to affect the values. So right now, because of all the different light sources, this would probably stipulate that there is a darker color paint on this back wall. And then with the rest of the room, and how it would work is that you have this large kind of opening, and these edges of your walls would be just slightly darker than kind of the middle portions. This area would probably be a little bit lighter just because we have this one light source on the edge of the wall. Now, if you want something to look metallic, just remember how we did that with the soda can. So for something to look metal, you want to kind of work with the curve of the object, and the tonal shading is a good way to do that. So we're just going to add some dark values to the sides and then just leave this kind of middle portion so that it looks, so it has that highlight to it. The bed, I can probably round these edges a little bit. I think we talked about that in the video on Zoom. Think about your values on the bed also. And so as you're working on your drawing, if there is something that you are wanting to include, but I didn't cover it in this and you're just not really sure how to draw it, just send me an email and send me the photo of your drawing and the description of what you're wanting to draw, and that'll allow me to help you with your object that you're wanting to include. Or you can come to my open Zoom and meet with me, and we can try and figure out how to draw a specific object or thing that you're wanting to include in your drawing. So that's it for the drawing example. Again, if you have any questions, just send me an email and I'll help you out.